Welcome to my video, and in this video I'm going to talk about some of the progress I made over the past couple weeks. And in the previous video I talked about how I made the roads and showcased the map by driving through the city, and I've started modeling some of the surrounding structures like the pavements and car parks, buildings, those type of stuff. And yeah, I'm quite happy about the shader I made for the buildings, which has some fake depths, so it feels like something is actually inside those buildings. And I also worked on a fairly basic day-night cycle, so if I just simulate it, the lights will turn on after sunset, and actually the lights has a fairly short draw distance, so it will turn off when you're far away for optimization. And the building lights, they have color variations, and by speed of time they will kind of randomly switch on and off. And buildings can have different color sets using material instances. And when you look at it very closely, it looks a bit artificial, but when you're far away I think it looks fairly nice. So some of the major assets I made are the window material, which basically uses interior cube map, which is provided by Epic Games by default. And I made some gradations using some UV techniques, and it's got a ceiling texture, so it can be changed for variations and stuff. And the intensity of the light is controlled by the material parameter collection, and the mask scale as well. That's how I done the random light switch. And yeah, color variations using LURP and using different layers of masks, and this one's also applied to the window color as well. It's very subtle, but it's there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the building shader. So I also made this object space texture material function, because when I use word align texture, which is given by default, the texture will not rotate with the object, so I had to make sure that texture kind of sticks to the object. So this one basically gets the absolute world position, which is also used for word align texture, I believe, and it converts that word space to local space and is masked out for XYZ. And this is also LURPed by the vertex normal. This is also transformed into from local space to word space. And yeah, that's basically what I've done. It's actually quite simple. So the tile actually aligns with the building no matter how I orient it. So as you can see, the texture also follows. And for the modular assets such as those traffic lights, I try to make variations using modular static meshes like this one. So you could just attach or detach objects if you wanted to, which is quite good for making variations. And this traffic light is basically using simple textures really, and the signs, which can have customizable texts, they're just using simple text render, which I think is a more optimized way of doing it, and when you're far away you can't really tell the difference between decals and the text render. So yeah, in the construction script, this one is promoted to a variable, so you can set it in the editor, and also you can just toggle off the side light, so you could just disable it when you don't want it. And the street name can be whatever I want, like that. And yeah, another example of the same application. You can just type in whatever street name you want, and if you don't want some parts, you could just disable it. And yeah, all these buildings are sharing the same master material, so I guess that is good for the performance. And if I just get my directional light and rotate it, if you take a look at the glasses, they're a bit wobbly, resulting in some distortions in reflections, which is common in real life. So I try to put that more in the detail for extra realism. I know not a lot of games have done it, so I guess it would be nice to add such detail. Is actually using a very subtle normal map, which is right here. It looks like a uniform color, but there's a very subtle detail which makes this wavy surface. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the results. And yeah, some variations for the street lamps, and I'm still looking for a solution because for the optimizations, because I'm getting this warning sign for the lights being too close to each other. And if you guys have some ideas, please let me know. When you have to have a lot of lights in the scene, how would you optimize it without getting this warning? And some patches of lands. I'm still working on the landscape material, and this texture is a photogrammetry texture. I just used my phone camera to capture it and made it tileable. And I am still working on the landscape, so still lots of areas to fill out. And yeah, that is what I've done for this week. some building blocks, modular buildings, and some street props, car parks, which is made using the same technique as the roads, and some pavements. Some of the areas are not perfect. I'm still trying to figure out how to make it more seamless. And please let me know if you guys have any ideas for that. And yeah, pavements also uses trim sheets for this type of extra details. And yeah, these paths in the park is created using the same method, using modules. So here are some very basic pavement modules I made, and it's using trim sheets for different parts. For example, this textile area. So I got this trim sheet for the side stone and this textile panel, and this one is using tileable texture which I made in Substance Designer. And there is another variations for more suburban area. So it's got some generic North American pavement design, and this will be laid out to fit those curvy roads, which is gonna be quite challenging, to be honest. And for simple pavements like this one, I used a slightly different method, which I just selected the edge loop of the road and kind of extruded inwards and started modeling from there. And the UV maps are laid out horizontally like this, so I would get this straight tile. And this one's done by laying out those modular kits, and took me quite a lot of time. So this is a much easier way of doing it, but less quality, I guess. And this one, for example, has separate UV shells, which is not good for performance, I guess. I heard having too many UV shells might cause some drops in performance, so I might want to fix that. And this patch of land, I made it by, again, extruding the edge loop inwards and filling the geometry. And I used Maya's new feature, which is remesh, which works surprisingly well. And if you remesh only a portion of the geometry, I can have some safe face loops, so the edge, very edge of the geometry is not deformed or remeshed. So the edge always stays in the same shape. And yeah, still lots of areas to fill out, but using this technique it shouldn't take too long. And for the texture variations, I might want to use vertex painting because I'm not using Unreal Engine's landscape system. I know Unreal Engine's landscape system has got really strong features for the materials, but for this type of non-uniform landscape shapes, I think it's probably better off making my own custom geometry. So yeah. And I might want to have more resolution for the geometry and use Nanite instead, because I think Nanite works really well with massive objects like this. And here are some building modules that I've used to construct these. And yeah, the individual modules are actually very basic, and I kind of assembled it by snapping them together like this and stacking them up, and I try to fit them to the footprint of the building by importing some of the blocks. And yeah, here are some examples, and this one's got 31,000 triangles, which I think is not bad for this type of massive structure. And this one, for some reason, they lost all the material details. It's really weird because they still have the information in the attribute data, but in the viewport they show up as green. Why is that? And anyways, these are the buildings I made so far, and I'm working on a building assembly tool in Houdini, so hopefully by the end of next week I can just use the tool instead of assembling them by hand, which takes quite a lot of time. So yeah, these are the buildings. If you guys found this video interesting, and if you'd like to see some more updates, please consider subscribing to this channel, and thank you for watching.